Some people wait for you to be at your most open before they ask you for the hardest thing. My mother waited 4 days. This is the story of what she asked, and the one lie she told that she never expected to come back to her. My name is Callie Mercer. I'm a 29-year-old labor and delivery nurse from Savannah, Georgia, and this is my story. My mother demanded my newborn 4 days after she arrived. But the story doesn't start there. It starts on a Tuesday at 6:17 in the morning, when June came into the world and everything I had ever wanted was finally real. 7 pounds 2 ounces. A full head of dark hair that the nurses kept commenting on. My husband Marcus was holding my hand when she arrived, and he cried, which I had never seen him do before in 4 years of marriage. I named her June because it was the month we had lost the one before her, and I wanted something to grow in that space instead. She was our daughter, June, and she was everything we had been waiting for. The first 4 days were quiet and enormous in the way that only the first days of something real can be. Marcus made his Sunday eggs on Wednesday just because he felt like celebrating. Too much pepper. The nursery walls were painted a color called morning fog. He had chosen it after the first shade wasn't right. On the 4th day, my mother called. Not to ask how I was feeling. Not to ask about June's sleep or her weight or the color of her eyes. She called because she had been waiting. And she had finally decided I had healed enough to hear what she needed from me. I answered on the second ring the way I always do. I had no idea what was coming. 4 days earlier, my mother, Patricia, had arrived at the hospital 3 hours after June was born. She held June for 40 minutes without putting her down. She cried. She told the nurses, "This is my daughter. She does everything right." She brought food enough for the whole ward. She straightened my blanket without being asked. She was everything a mother is supposed to be in that room. What I noticed and filed away without saying anything was that she said June looked just like my older sister, Dana, 3 times. 3 separate nurses. 3 times. My older sister, Dana, has been trying to have a baby for 6 years. She has not been able to. I know what that costs. I have watched it cost her. Marcus noticed the 3rd time my mother said it. He looked at me briefly across the room. I looked away. Later that night, after my mother had gone home, Marcus asked me quietly, "Did something feel off to you today?" I said, "She's just emotional. It's a big day." He nodded and let it go. She told the nurses I do everything right. 2 days later, she called. She opened the call the way she always opens difficult things, by telling me how much she loves me. "You know I would do anything for you," she said. I said I knew that. "I need to talk to you about something. And I need you to hear it with an open heart before you respond." That phrase, open heart, has always meant, please don't say no yet. She talked about Dana for several minutes. About what infertility had done to her. About how Dana lights up around children. Then she said it. "I'm not asking you to stop being her mother, Callie. I'm asking you to be the kind of mother who puts her family first. Dana would do this for you. You know she would. And June would never want for anything, you know that too." She used the word sacrifice 4 times. I counted. She said I was young and could try again. She said Dana was running out of time. She ended by saying, "I know you'll make the right decision. You always do." I pressed my left thumb into my palm and said I needed to think. She said, "Of course. Take your time." She had already told Dana. But she wouldn't tell me what Dana had actually said. 6 days after June came home, my mother called a family dinner. She said it was to celebrate the baby. My Aunt Frances came, my mother's older sister, the one who knows everything about everyone and means no harm by any of it. 2 cousins. Dana was not there. I noticed that immediately. Marcus held June through most of dinner. He kept one hand on her the entire time, even while eating, like he already knew something needed protecting. My mother did not bring up what she had asked me. But she talked about Dana. She talked about what it means to carry grief no one can see. She talked about how the people who love us most are sometimes the ones who can give us what we need most. She looked at me twice while she spoke. Not at the table. At me. Aunt Frances nodded along. My cousins talked about Dana's strength. Nobody in that room knew what was actually being said except my mother and me. Marcus watched my face the whole drive home. He didn't ask anything. I didn't say anything. My thumb pressed into my palm the entire ride. Aunt Frances hadn't noticed. I had. 8 days after June was born, my mother showed up at our house unannounced. Marcus was at work. She sat with June for 2 hours. She fed her. She sang to her. She was completely present in a way that made it impossible to be angry. Before she left, she stood at the door with June still in her arms and said, "I've been looking at some things online. The school district near Dana's house is really excellent. One of the best in the county." She handed June back to me. She kissed my cheek. She left. I stood in the doorway holding June for a long time after her car pulled out. She had said it so casually. Like she had already decided. Like the only thing left was for me to understand that she had. I looked down at June. June was looking at the light coming through the front window. She had no idea that someone was already planning the life she would live somewhere else. My thumb pressed into my palm so hard it left a mark. If you have ever been asked to give up the most important thing in your life by someone who called it love, stay with me. Because what happened next is the part that finally broke the silence. That evening I told Marcus. Not everything. Some of it. I told him my mother had suggested, that was the word I used, suggested, giving June to Dana. I told him she had called and that I had said I needed to think. I watched his face while I spoke. He was very still. Marcus goes still the way some people go loud completely and with intention. When I finished, he said, "When did she call?" 4 days ago, I said. He looked at me for a long moment. 4 days. Not a question. Just the number sitting between us. I didn't want to upset you, I said. I thought I could handle it. He nodded slowly and got up to check on June. He came back and sat down. Has she called again? No. She's waiting. He said, I know. What I did not tell him was that my mother had already started calling June, our girl, in her texts. What I did not tell him was the school district. I told myself I was protecting him. Absorbing it alone, which is exactly where my mother had always counted on me to be. 3 days later, Aunt Frances called Marcus. I was in the nursery feeding June when I heard his voice change in the kitchen. Not louder. Quieter. The way Marcus gets quiet when something requires his full attention. I could not hear what Frances was saying. I could only hear Marcus saying, I see. And then, when did she tell you that? And then nothing for a long time. Frances had called to thank him. My mother had called Frances 2 days earlier and told her that Marcus had agreed to the arrangement. That it had actually been his idea. That Callie was the one hesitating because Callie was being emotional and needed time. Patricia had told Frances that things were being worked out. That it was just a matter of time. Frances had called Marcus to say she thought he was a remarkable man. That what he was doing for Dana was the most generous thing she had ever seen a son-in-law do. I heard Marcus say, thank you for calling, Frances. I need to go. Then silence. I looked at the morning fog walls and held June a little tighter. Frances had called Marcus to thank him. For something he had never agreed to. I walked into the kitchen still holding June. Marcus was standing at the counter with his phone face down in front of him. He looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then he held out his arms and I handed June to him. He held her against his chest and looked at me over the top of her head. Frances just called, he said. I know, I said. She called to thank me. I know. For something I never agreed to. I know. He was quiet for a moment. June made a small sound and he adjusted his hold without looking away from me. How long have you known about this? He said. Not angry. Not loud. Just the question I had spent 11 days carrying by myself so he wouldn't have to. Since the 4th day, I said. He nodded once and looked down at June. She was watching the light through the kitchen window the same way she had watched the light through the front door. Completely unbothered. Completely unaware. He looked at her and then at me. I'm going to call your mother, he said. He looked at her. Still. Marcus called my mother that evening. I sat in the living room with June asleep on my chest and listened to his voice from the other room. He did not raise it once. I heard him say, Patricia, I want to ask you something. Then, when you called Frances, what exactly did you tell her about me? I could not hear my mother's response. But I heard the silences between his words get longer as she spoke. He said, so you told her it was my idea. Pause. And you told Dana it was being worked out. Pause. And you've been telling Callie to think, while telling everyone else it was decided. Then Marcus said, Patricia, I want you to understand something clearly. I heard the lie you told Frances. I heard it directly from her. June is not available. She was never available. The next time you speak to anyone in this family about my daughter, you call me first. Not Callie. May. There was a long silence on the other end. For the first time in my life, my mother had nothing to say. He came back and sat beside me. June was still asleep. What did she say? I asked. At the end, nothing, he said. She had never planned to ask. She had only planned to present. My mother did not call for 11 days after Marcus spoke to her. When she finally did, she called me. Not Marcus. May. She said she was sorry if things had gotten complicated. She said she had only wanted what was best for the family. She said she hoped I knew how much she loved me. I said I knew. I did not say anything else. She has not mentioned Dana's name to me since. She has not used the word sacrifice or school district or our girl. Dana and I still talk slowly, carefully, the way you rebuild something that cracked but did not break. She told me she never asked our mother to do what she did. I believed her. I still do. June is 3 months old now. She watches light the way she has always watched light, like it is the most interesting thing in any room. Marcus makes his Sunday eggs every week. Too much pepper. The morning fog walls are exactly right. The people who love you do not ask you to sacrifice the irreplaceable. They stand beside you and they make the call you couldn't make for yourself. If this story stayed with you, like this video, subscribe so you never miss one like it, and tell me in the comments, has someone ever asked you to give up something irreplaceable and called it love? Yes or no? My mother demanded my newborn. My husband heard one lie. And June watched the light completely unbothered. Completely ours.